Hello YouTube, it's Moosin here, welcoming you back to another Duelyst video. And in this one I decided to do something I haven't really done before. I don't believe, or at least not in a budget version. I've got this deck list here. It's a budget heal Zir'An list. You'll see the title, you'll know what it's all about. Just wanted to show off a deck I've been testing, having a lot of fun with, and relative success. I've gotten into gold with it. Hasn't been doing too bad. It is very budget. It's got some epics. It's got 5 epics, and that's about it. No expansion cards. Just what you see from here. Not spending any money. It's a free-to-play kind of thing. I'm gonna start talking through the list. Why I added what I had. Still in development, but it's doing pretty well. So first of all, in the heals around this, you need some healing. I've got a couple of sun drop elixirs. I got a prismatic one, so that's some fancy. I got a fizz. Throwing a fizz there. Not perhaps super necessary. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 9 2-drops. You should never struggle to get your opening play. You could argue that the Sun Wisp isn't required, but I'll go into why I have the Sun Wisp in a moment. So we've got the Fizz for healing. I like to have the healing cards for procs and to heal your general. It's all about the cheap healing, which is really nice. But this has a downside in that it's a battle pet, but it has better stats. So early game, you might want to go for the healing Mystic just because you can control it, you can take mana tiles. But sort of mid to late game, where the mana tiles don't matter as much, Fizz could be a decent go. They heal for the same amount. Then we've got the Light Chaser. Or another card that benefits from healing, not just on itself, but whenever you heal something, it gains +1/+1. So that's why you want as much healing as you can in the deck. It buffs this up. If early game you throw that in the back, it could get answered, it could not. But if it doesn't get answered, it's why we kind of have just one of the Magnetize. We can safely play this in the back and bring it in when we need to. They might not see it coming. They should know about Magnetize in sort of the higher levels of play. But not everyone runs it in their Magma decks, so it can be really nice. And it keeps it safe from things like Lightbenders and Ephemeral Shrouds. Not ranged dispel like Chromatic Cold or Sunbloom, but it gives you better odds and to bring it in when you need it. Lucent Beam is a really nice removal card for 2 mana. In this archetype, it's pretty easy to get the combo off to heal, and then you get the benefit of dealing 4 damage. So it's a 2 mana card that can, in most cases, deal 4 damage. Sunblooms are pretty necessary. You need some kind of dispel. I'm not running Shrouds. Later on, I might opt for Lightbenders. Perhaps swapping out Hailstone Golem for some Lightbenders. Just because it gives you ranged and it gives you in close dispel as well in like an area that's could be to a greater extent than what Sunbloom can do in certain situations. Afterblaze, it's just a generally good buff for. I do have a couple of Zeal minions. I have the Windblade Adept and the Silver Guard. So the Afterblaze gives them a buff, can make them a bit more sticky, a bit more hard to remove in most cases. And it also just is a sort of a cantrip. It's a buff cantrip, which draws you a card, which card draw is something that isn't huge in the deck. And so I'll cover that now while we have the Afterblaze that could potentially give you a card. We also is why we're running the Sun Wisps. Opening game, draw a card. Now there are some neutral card draws like Sojourner and Spelljammer, but Spelljammer is a legendary, so we could go for Sojourner in the later developments of the deck, we can test that and see how it works. But for now, we're not doing too bad. We can get more value from our minions, so we might not need to play as many. It's just what I've experienced so far. Daywatcher is really nice. If you can then have a board early game and make them stick, you can then play Daywatcher, and then you can really benefit from the healing procs, because having Daywatcher on the board, anytime your minion attacks, whenever your friendly minion attacks, restore 1 health to your general, and that procs healing off of this. So we start to see some synergy here in the early game at the very least, not having reached our epic cards yet, and this is where it really gets juicy. Divine Bond, it can be good on certain cards that I am running in the deck, giving the +4 health to a minion, regardless of whether it has Zeal, and to combo that with Divine Bond. It's a pretty decent combo, provided you have a minion on field. Wouldn't really be needed with Light Chaser, but it could be on the Windblade, it could be on a Daywatcher, it could be on a Silver Guard, which is where we get to now. Just a really solid tempo play, going second. And perhaps if you can lead off with one of your 2 drops, and then if it's not too critical to your plan, to the overall game, you can trade that out with their drop, and then drop the Silver Guard in front of them. So that's really solid. It's a Divine Bond target, it's a afterbase target, so it's really nice. Martyrdom's decent removal. It's not the best to, in the late game, use a Martyrdom. Sometimes you have to use the Martyrdom on must-answer high health minions, or the game will get out of hand. You want to avoid using it as much as possible, see if there's any other options. If there aren't, go for it. But it is making the best out of a bad situation. Martyrdom also procs healing, can set in a chain of events. So we have the Silver Guard, we have the Sunforged Lancer. Whenever anything is healed, give your general +1 attack. This is where you can start getting big, you can start trading out with things. And with you getting healed and having high attack, it's a really efficient clear as well. Hailstone is just a 4-drop slot filler. It's a really decent neutral golem for 4 mana, 4/6. It can be good for things like Divine Bond, because for Divine Bond you want things that have the higher health stat than attack stat. If it has higher attack than it has health, it's not as impactful to use Divine Bond on it. You can also combo with Alpha Base if you get it to stick in the late game. It can be a powerful finisher. Holy Immolation I feel is a must-of. It's a healing card, it's a damage AoE card in a small area, or in a particular area. And it procs healing, all these things. It's a really useful card. Primus Shieldmaster is another decent 4-drop. Having these high health minions, it's more likely I'll be able to get them to stick. They can take some damage, and I'll be able to use my BBS on them to keep them alive, to keep them stocked up. And the more board control you have, the better for things like Daywatcher. Sunriser is at the moment only a 1-of. I would like to make it a 2-of. It's a really nice card. If you have something like Sunriser, Daywatcher on the board, it is Daywatcher. Super powerful. There isn't any Tempest. Oh, there is a couple of Tempests. I use that for some AoE against Abyssian, Lilith. And this is a further card which can handle Lilith, but it can also, in certain situations, take out really high health minions in the right board state. If they just go for sort of a Hail Mary, really big Iron Cliff or something like that in the mirror match, you can work it down with Sunriser. They would play it at 5 mana, so you'd probably have a board by then. There were multiple options to do that in this deck with so many cheap cards and so much possibility for removal and sticky minions and things like that. So Sunriser is really helpful. I would like to make it a 2-of. I'm not sure what it would take out. But it's a thought for future deck tweaking. And Suntide Maiden is also really nice. It heals itself at the end of every turn. which is super handy for heal procs, for so many things. It's all three. It can also be Divine Bonded, and it's a 9 attack, 9/6. It heals itself at the end of the turn. It demands removal. There are some early game that might demand removal, for example, the Light Chaser. Perhaps the Day Watcher, if you decide to put that in the back, they don't want to keep that there. And so by the time the sort of mid to late game gets around, you can start dropping these bodies. Sometimes you just have to tempo out this stuff at 3 mana. You haven't got any other play. It happens. There is luck of the card draw. But most of the time you will get that early game play. Without lots. In a budget list, we would like some more late game. What have we got? Crafting. There are considerations. There are things like you might want to run Decimate as a decent clear if things aren't going your way. Just as a general tech card for this meta, there are things like you could include Iron Cliffs since we are running some Divine Bonds and some Afterblazers. Circle of Life is a really nice removal card that you could also put in. But we've only included so many epics. We have 5 epics all in all. So if you could save up for that. Also, that is a legendary. It's not as budget, but it's for future consideration, as I say. Excelsius, I feel like, is a bit of a last-ditch effort if things aren't really going your way. If they are, it's just a win more card. But if they aren't, I'm not really sure how helpful it'll be. It could have really good stats. But if things aren't going your way and you have to position that right near the general, you could get punished. What else have we got? Skybarrel is a nice clear. I haven't tested all of these cards. Still in rotation, still with some of the neutrals. I mean, there's things like Sunseer, but Lasting Judgment is something I definitely want to include once it's a 2 of. Can be a real nice removal card. And I think that's about it. So I think we'll be getting into some games. We'll be showcasing 4 games just to see what it can do, what its weaknesses are, and what its strengths are. So we'll get into some games. I'll be right back. This is a game against a Starhorn. So we are only in gold. We're not in diamond yet. But I still think that these games are kind of relevant. Some of them are a bit tough. We'll go double speed. So we're not struggling for our turn 1 play, but I do believe you want to save the healing. You don't want to tempo that out. We do go for Windblade. You want to save the healing mainly because you want to get the best out of that healing. And the way you do that is by getting the procs off along with. We have the Sunrise in hand, which is super nice. That does get natural. And he has the God Hammer. So we do have to go for a little bit of a tempo play. We can go 2 into 2 to put some pressure on. And it's essentially only playing 1 card, as 1 card can recycle itself. We have the Afterblaze. We don't have any Zeal minions, so it's not the best. And with this play, it's looking good that we might be able to go for a Holy Immolation play, provided he doesn't have natural. Because he could have come here, hit that, and natural selected that for a second time. And we see a mech unit, which isn't unheard of in Starhorn. He was running a really interesting variant, I would say. So right now we have a few different things. We have some bodies on the board that can trade out with these guys. I did make a bit of a misplay, I believe, in this turn, based on what I decided to do. I believe I should have here. Let's see, I'm not sure if I played a Prime Shield Master or the Sunriser, but I think I played a Shield Master. The only misplay here, I think, is I used the Healing Mystic to trade out with the Sword of Mechazor. I could have crisscrossed instead. I could have brought the Sun Wisp along, traded out with that, brought this down, used the Prime Shield Master, trap that in. This would grow to a 3/3 at the end of the turn, but it wouldn't be able to kill the Shield Master at 6 health. The other thing I could have done is gotten rid of the God Hammer and not allowed him to use his Frenzy. There were a few options here, but I go for this instead. I do go to Primus Shield Master. I make that trade, which isn't ideal. The difference being I hit here, but I could have had a 2/1 alive. They would have also had to deal with, rather than losing both and just having my Primus Shield Master. So the Magnetize here, not super relevant as we don't have any Light Chasers. We do mill here. He's trying to deal some face damage with Philly's hands. He was searching for maybe a natural selection, didn't find it. So here's a really nice play. So I think there are a few options here as well. A clear play, perhaps, would be to... We could have Sunrised and then Afterglow. But that doesn't quite do the trick. We would have to hit this anyway, because the Sunrise only deals 2 damage, so it would still remain on 1 health. And we'd use up all our mana to heal it. This would drop back down to 3, because we'd have to use it to finish it off, ideally. He doesn't have his God Hammer anymore, which is nice. The other play is the Holy Immolate, obviously. We hit here, Holy Immolate. Other potential uses is we don't need to be in range to Zeal. So what we could have done is perhaps moved back 1, utilize this mana tile, drop the Sunforge and a Day Watcher. But the problem with that is it is playing a little bit into Plasma Storm, which is what I was a little bit scared of. I didn't want to throw out my hand too fast. But it would have healed me a little bit. And I don't have any direct form of healing for my face, other than the Day Watcher. But I believe I Holy Immolate. So I hit Holy Immolate. I have a fallback. Ideally, he doesn't want to Plasma Storm 1 card. He is super low now. Whereas if I had put more bodies on the board, that would have made Plasma Storm a lot more viable. There is a Mercantor. So he does clear that. But he is super low. We have a decent clear, regardless of whether I heal proc this turn or not. It does 2 damage just by itself. So we go for a slightly slower play, just to develop and remove. In terms of what you want to order with first, if you can get a stickier minion on the board earlier, you don't want to lead off with things like the Sunforged Lancer and the Sunriser if you can help it. If you can lead off with things like Suntide Maiden and get them to stick for 1 turn, then you put things like these down, and at the end of that turn, they'll have some immediate impact. Whereas if you led off with them, they themselves can't do the trick because they can't attack, and then you can't heal it to get +1 attack for you. Same reason here. It's not like Holy Immolation. There are some few differences. Holy Immolation you can use even if a minion is at full health. But if you try and heal something at full health, it doesn't apply. This won't proc. None of these abilities will proc because it's at full health. It's not technically being healed. Something important to remember. But if we get the Suntide Maiden to stick, we can start proccing these abilities. It'll heal itself at the end of the turn. We have our BBS to also do that. So we see some more Mechazor units now. And I believe he summons Mechazor this turn. Yeah, it looks like he is. So I did search here. I did wait on this turn for a fair bit and try and find lethal. I don't believe it was here. Please, if you're knowledgeable of the game, I looked and looked. I don't think it was there with the Sunriser trying to clear things, but having to hit first to get the proc off. I don't think it was there. I'll look at the mulligan first. So, okay. I'm not sure how... I'm going at double speed, so it's doing this a lot faster than I actually did it. I did wait a little bit. I end up going with... There are many lines of play. I'm at 7 mana, so I can Sunriser, Day Watcher, and then use this to hit, but then I can't Bloodborne spell. So I do have to wait till the end of turn. But the problem is I couldn't... I was 2 damage off, essentially. I could hit there, put the Sunriser in, summon the Day Watcher, and then hit. And that would proc it once. It would heal at the end of the turn, procs twice. It's not enough. And then I'm at the disadvantage of, hey, there's Decimus and there's Mechazor right here. So I do have the Sunbloom in hand, and given that I have the Sunbloom, it is the play, I think. Because I don't have lethal here. I think I calculated not lethal. So I Sunbloom, and then I have, 5 mana to work with. So it is a 4-1-1. And to do a bit of board clear, and to start evading a little bit more. Want to not get hit with the 8-8 and the 4-4. And there's a little bit of an anti-Mercantor play. The Sunriser does still go down. To a Mercantor, that is. So we're out of range of these guys now. We have a nice board set up. The Sunriser's there. We have a Tempest, which could be nice to push us over the edge. There is the Mercantor to take out the Sunriser. But the problem is, he can't... That was all his mana. Well, almost. All of his cards in hand, at the very least. He didn't want to hit that. And this is just a simple hit, move down, hit, and Tempest. And so we're fortunate in that we did have that potential to heal up with the Day Watcher, which would have just gotten us over the threshold of the Decimus. Something that didn't quite show, but is definitely a real possibility, is Zir'An can heal themselves past that 11 health threshold, which is what you aim for as a Starhorn player running Decimus. Traditionally, it was a sort of Decimus mech hybrid, which I hadn't seen before. But ordinarily, you will be able to heal yourself above that threshold. You'll be able to keep yourself out of the danger zone, as well as getting the heal procs on things and clearing board. And we had a lot of early game, so we can push faster. In general, I would say not all the time, but the more consistent outcome will be that we can push faster and harder and clear board more efficiently before they can get Mechazor up. And then in this situation, they might summon it. In other circumstances, we might have had lethal on the turn he summoned it. But Lionheart also has the answer in the form of Sunbloom. So I think that was right in him not putting it in the corner. And this is just a small side note, getting a little bit off topic. You want to place Mechazor in close if you know that the faction has that range removal in like Chromatic Cold and Sunbloom. But if they are more likely, you'd think, to rely on Shrouds and Lightbenders, you want to place it further away. So this is lethal here. We do manage to finish him off with a Tempest. That was game number 1. Now we're getting to the next game. We need to have another Magma game. So on this occasion, we are going first yet again. We're versing Vath instead of Starhorn this time. We'll speed it up. Just so we can get these games going fast. But if there's a particular turn I want to talk about, I will pause it. So our hand, perhaps not as good of a start as the previous game. We do have the Day Watcher, we have some healing procs. We have the Holy Immolation. Divine Bond I tend to replace early game. Just because it's more of a last ditch sort of finisher. It does natural select, which is decent for me. Natural selecting a 2-1 is better than natural selecting a 3-5. I guess he wanted to deny the ramp, but we didn't really need it. We have our 3-drop tempo play regardless. So out comes the Sunsteel Defender. We do have a really nice clear here. In this situation, this is where I should show to a place. Have I done that yet? There we go. So we have the Lucent Beam, which I am able to utilize here with my Bloodborne spell. But this is where something like Lasting Judgment is a slightly less expensive clear, because I do have to do some combos in order to clear this. And it works because it's an in-faction Lucent Beam combos well in most cases, as I say, but most of the time using Lasting Judgment is better than trying to work your way through a force field. We'll see what I do here and see that I do have to take 4 damage to the face in order to clear this. But I do still get the board set up. So we Afterglow, we get the healing proc. Lucent Beam clears the Sunsteel Defender. So I'm a little bit low on health, but I have this. He could flash Mercantor here, but the quicker I get this out of Plasma Storm range, the better. Lava Slasher does come out. It's a really nice starter minion. Something that you will struggle, they can, going second, bring that out a lot earlier. And if you don't have the martyrdoms in hand, which we do not, it can be a bit of an awkward clear. As it is 5 health, it's not clean to deal with at the 4 health range. And it's such a powerful removal card for Magmar. So I do again use my face here, I believe. Try and keep things alive. Now this is a Plasma Storm play. If he has it. So potentially better play. I don't believe I had the Hailstone. I believe I just drew into that Hailstone. It may have been a better play, as I would have been able to use my face and this and clear anyway. And then summon the Hailstone perhaps. Okay, so I could have summoned the Hailstone, Bloodborne spelled on my Silverguard. No, okay, I'm getting muddled. I didn't have my Bloodborne spelled, so I would have double traded with these guys and summoned the Hailstone just for the sake of playing around Plasma Storm. And it also lives in Mercantor hit. We do see the Mercantor coming out as a clear instead. And this is the disadvantage of not having a board. We can't capitalize on our Day Watcher. Because it only counts for attacks, not counter attacks. So we can't utilize this at the moment. So I feel like this was a little bit of a tough decision. I don't think I made the right play here. I think I wait and I try and get the board set up and I try and get my Day Watcher working. And so I'd be a little bit too risky with my health. And I rely sometimes a little bit too much on getting the setup and relying on the setup for late game. This is more, I need to say, okay, so I'm really low on health right now. I can't afford to take these trades anymore. But I do use a Sun Drop and hit. This is the Plasma, I believe, yeah. So now because I invested in the Primus, I invested in the Primus, it got removed, my hand isn't looking solid. We're behind on cards, sort of behind on board because of the 4 attack. 3 attack. And behind on hand as well. So this, I make yet another misplay, I think. So in this situation, I am concerned that if I just play this Suntide Maiden, it could be easily removed via a natural selection or a Plasma Storm. And so I want to get that straight up value from it. But I think even though that was a real possibility, it could just get natural selected, I think I just play passive and start... I don't think the 4 damage, which even had the health total a little bit, but he's still ahead. I don't think that 4 damage was worth it. I don't think the aim of the game for Heal Zir'An is to burst you down so much as to just stall you out and heal you out. So I shouldn't have made that combo and burnt out my hand. Now we're sitting at 2 cards at the end of turn. He's sitting at 5. He still has more health than us. And he does have the natural. So if we had backed up, put that down, he naturals that. We don't feel so bad, since we did join to the second one. This is the benefit of hindsight. But we see here, making me move against that wall, as opposed to just backing off, has now got me trapped in with these Rage Binders, which are sticky egg minions, which are going to be really hard to deal with. Yeah, so overall, it wasn't a good play. I tried to deny mana, deal damage, try and get some value from my minions before they got removed, but it didn't end up working, and I put myself in a really bad position as a consequence. So, yeah. I realize there's lethal on board, there's not much I can do to stop it. So I'm just making a play for the sake of it. It is GG here. So that's where it's not as strong. Zir'An versus Vath is a known sort of bad contest because of Plasma Storm and then natural selections. You can deny the setup that you wouldn't need as Zir'An. Archeon can handle it a little bit better because they can war minions, war the 3 attack minions out of range of Plasma Storm, which can be really nice. So they have better odds, but Zir'An kind of struggles in that Vath matchup, which is something to remember, something to consider if you try and do the deck at any point. So we'll go into the next game. So this one is versing Lilith, Dingo 44. And this is the first time we're going second, I believe. So it's a Mana Fortress, so I'm thinking Arcanist. An advantage of versing Arcanist Lilith is not having that Chromatic Cold. They could still be running Lightbenders, but going for the line of play of getting my face big isn't the worst. It might not be the best, but it's not the worst. So we do have to go for a bit of a tempo play here. If I just went Tempest, it wouldn't quite remove the Mana Forger. And my AoE can be somewhat limited, and if I just spit it out really early against Lilith, I'm going to struggle getting swarmed in the late game. The Healing Mystic, I don't want to waste a proc, so I do tempo out the Sunforge Lancer. There's some advantages to having a 4 health 3-drop, in that it can't be lured and hit unless he uses the Mana Forge as a resource as well. And there's the Prismatic Illusionist. And the lure does come out, and he does hit it with his general. But say we had a 3 health 3-drop. That Mana Forger wouldn't have needed to be hit. And I do not have the... I do believe I will play second, which is a mistake on my part. It's going a little bit too fast. It's just a little bit out of sync at the moment. But I did go for the Tempest play there. Just because of the must answer situation. That was the only sort of AoE clear I had. And if he had kept that on board, he had 4 mana. Who knows what kind of spells he could have had. So, and we do manage to clear the Mana Forger as well, along with, because of the early Sunforge Lancer. So he has a second Mana Forger. He does line up for a nice simulation play, which hint hint is the play. There are a few options here though. I didn't want to leave the Mana Forger on the board because a couple of reasons. It gives him cheap spells and it gives bond effects as well. And it's an Arcanist. He could go off on an LB Sage if I keep it up, and then it becomes really difficult to deal with. So I do believe Immolation is the play. But another thing is I could have just provoked, trapped him in, and developed a little bit more board. Since I do have access to 7 mana this turn. We're not paused. Yeah, so I've got it on the real time now. So I am thinking maybe it's better. Maybe it's better to go on real time, and just show that I do think about my turns. I do consider all my options and what I might want, what I might not want. But it does go for slightly longer, so we'll see how we do. Okay, maybe just this turn. It is taking quite a while. Yeah. That's just a little bit of insight. So we hit first, we hold Immolation. Take center. Really commanding board position. Not too much board, but health. And being able to shut down its Arcanist. We do have to go for a slightly different approach than we normally would against this Arcanist, because it's tough to win the value game against Arcanists. They have many useful minions at their disposal, and they have the ability to clear your board and fill up their hand. It's really difficult to outvalue them and keep up with their card draw as well, especially in the budget version. We don't have Trinity Oath or things like that. They'll always have a bit more of a hand in you, especially if it's Lilith. Or if it's Lilith, Arcanist Lilith, or Fae. Or maybe just Vanna and Abyssian in general. It's tough to keep up with them, so you sort of have to go face a little bit more and try and get in that damage. So we have the option to Martyrdom here. But it just delays a little bit, I guess you'd say. And with what I have in my hand, I do see a bit of a better play in getting that setup going. I could Martyrdom it, but I could just box it out. The moment I just take time out of my turn to answer his board, he can just drop more Arcanists down. He's already got value from this blue Conjurer. And there's plenty of tools at his disposal to do that. So we do box it out again. It can't hit my face. Oh, it does have the potential to hit my face. You could Chakra here, move across, hit. But we are at a decent health total. And we do this setup so that it can't get in and clear this. He does have the lure. So he had to expend some resources, which is nice. But the spells, again, they do fill up his hand. So you sort of have to be a bit more bursty. This is a really nice trade for me. Having that Hailstone Golem trades out with his Chakra before it gets too developed. And he decides to get rid of the blue Conjurer. I don't know if there's a better play there for him. He used the Demonic Lure. As I say, I'm not sure what he has in his hand. Maybe that was the best play. But again, we do have a Tempest finisher, as we did in the Starhorn game. And get that last little bit of burst before they swarm the board with too many high value minions. Before we get to that death knell stage at 8 mana, where the game would have definitely tipped in their favour. You can't let Arcanist, Abyssian, I guess, get into that late game, or they're going to definitely outvalue you, and then everything that's happened up until that point, all the Arcanists you've cleared, are going to come back in your face. So you need to be a little bit aggro in that contest. We do have one more game. So we have our last game of this video. Hope you've enjoyed so far. This one against Raver. Again, we have our solid turn 1 drop. I have some heals in hand already, so I opt to swap out the Sundrop Elixir and go for a Tempo Windblade. It does get dealt with, I believe. Yeah, this is an easy Phoenix Fire. It is most of his turn. But with this move up into the corner, I do suspect Artifacts. Artifact Weaver is a common playstyle sort of for the Songhai faction. They have a lot of strength since Bonds. They have the ranged artifact with Bangle and things like that, and Crescent Spear. So I do try and get ready. I could have gone 2 into 2 there, but I want to box him in as fast as possible. We do see the Bangle. He does get away from that. So it can be nice for Lina having these provokes. There are obviously ways for Songhai to get around this, as you will see in a moment. Spoilers. But being able to lock them down just a little bit can be helpful in some situations. We have limited provokes. We have the Silverguard Knights and the Prime Mr. Shieldmasters. But other than that, we don't have too much. So maybe it wasn't... You could argue it wasn't the best play to spit him out this early. As I say, I want to lock him down before we can do any combos, which didn't end up working out. So now with the Bangle, it's a really strong play. With the Bangle and Silhouette Tracer, you can definitely evade them until you get your own board set up. And I'm left chasing him around the board, a bit of a wild goose chase. You can cue the Benny Hill theme. So I do think about Sunblooming, but wasting a Sunbloom on one Heartseeker feels a little bit bad. I save it just in case he's got a little bit more, I believe. Do I save it? I do save it, yeah. And the Sun Wisp. Just to get some bodies on the board. If he has some kind of AoE clear, it could be really rough for me right now. I don't believe that's what he had. And this is a really rough turn with the Ranged Mask and the Bangle. He has a really strong clear of my Silverguard Knights, getting himself up to 5 attack. This is where it looks a little bit dire. We have Sunforged Lancer still on the board, so before that gets removed as well, I do want to get some value out of it. We do have the Sunriser. So this wasn't the worst turn, it was just making the best out of a bad situation. We do, that's mainly, we don't kill this, we don't clear the Silhouette Tracer, we just use it as a means to proc its ability, to get some attack going. And over here, it clears the range, but it only removes 1 proc off of his artifacts. It's something you want to keep track of for sure. So he does use a Phoenix Fire to trade out with that. And the Cobra Strike. Here. So in this situation, I guess we should be glad he didn't have a Crescent Spear on as well, as the Phoenix Fire and the Cobra Strike would have straight up cleared the Sunforged Lancer and Sunriser, respectively. and he wouldn't have had that Tracer on board. Now, I do kind of suspect that he had the Onyx Bear Seal. So, by placing one minion, it wouldn't have been great. By placing a couple, I mainly want to keep pace with him as much as I can. Try and keep trapping him in with provokes. And he has one more proc, or one more new ability, I should say, on his artifacts. As I hit him once over here with the Sunriser, twice there with my face. The Onyx Bear Seal does come out, and he manages to hit me twice. And there is the Crescent Spear. So, Onyx Bear Seal is an interesting card. It does remove a minion, but it's not completely out, as you say, it's still prone to buffs and things. Can be really nice. And it's a small thing that was a bit of a no-brainer for me, but unless he had another Silhouette Tracer, you just got to cover as many bases as you can and make the best out of the situation. Right now, I do remove it, but hypothetically, he's put down the Artifact Hunter. So he could have another Bangle, he could have another Ranged Mask. If he has another Bangle, he could clear this. Or if he has another Bangle, I should say, he could stop himself getting trapped in this corner. He could move over here if he has it ranged. He could also... I don't think he could have, unless he wanted to take the 4 on his way there. If he had the Bangle unranged, he could hit there and move forward, hit, and he's out of the way, and he could summon a Heartseeker, which I couldn't deal with. But it's important, like, if I just put it there, it would have been a no-brainer to move up, and there wouldn't have been much consequence. I do think he misplays a little bit here. We do see a ranged and a Saber Spine. Now, if I were him in this situation, just based on what I know is going to happen in a moment, I would have perhaps traded that Artifact Hunter in, for sure, but I would have cleared the Hailstone Golem while I had that 6 attack. All I can think of is that perhaps he's wanting to get me low enough for a Spiral Technique. Which is another thing you can work around. It's like the same situation where you can heal past that 11 HP threshold against Starhorn, so that it makes their combo of like Decimus Sparks less viable, I guess you'd say. We can do the same thing here. We have the heals in hand. We can't draw cards with this, but having a buff like this, again, comes in handy in a situation with the Pando. And we are able to lock him down here. Clear the Heartseeker. I don't know if we get rid of the artifacts, but it's looking good regardless. He's only got one card in hand, so we have the card advantage at the moment. I couldn't afford to Tempest based on how low I was. He could have definitely smoked me down at that point. There's a Twin Strike. He only gets the cards at the end of the turn. And this is a well played. So, a second Afterblaze is really nice. I don't believe I could have used the Mystic. I don't think that was the play here. I could have traded that off for sure. That's our third game where we've got the Tempest lethal, living under 1 HP. So that's the deck. There's some games. As I say, in the Arcanist matchup, it's really big in the meta right now. It's tough to outvalue them, so you need to go for more of a small sort of thing. And against Vath, you might struggle as well because of the high value minions. But there's always a chance. There's always a chance you can have things go right for you, etc., etc. You smoke harder than they can before they get set up, and just a blowout against Arcanist. Against Vath, getting more things like the Hailstone Golem out and getting value out of them might be the play, and getting the buffs straight away and getting a Light Chaser developed, which can play around Plasma Storm. So there are options. It's tough to get the luck of the draw at the right time, but it's not impossible. And there are some couple of strong matchups. I might do a future video based on more games that I run into, some interesting games, broadcasting different kinds of matchups, but we'll stay tuned. Thanks for watching so far. I hope you have a wonderful day.